All right, let's get into some interesting news from around the world with the U.S. men's national team player pool. We'll talk about Zack Steffen because apparently one of the top goalkeepers in the Bundesliga from Arminia Bielefeld, who got relegated last year with George Bello, he is looking to go on a free transfer to Manchester City, Heath Pearce, and his first name is Steffen, which is kind of funny. So they're going to trade, maybe potentially trade one Steffen for another, but that's not good news for Zack Steffen. And maybe this is forcing his hand to go find some minutes elsewhere, because we're also seeing the same thing at Nottingham Forest where Ethan Horvath, they're looking for other goalkeepers to come in as well now that they got promoted to the Premier League, and Horvath seems to be kind of second or third choice to them. But let's talk about Zack Steffen first. What do you do if you're Zack Steffen at this point, if you're hearing or seeing this news?
I mean, you're in a tough spot because he signed a deal through 2025, and I'm sure it's really good money. And that is a tough thing to take into consideration. Having said that, Zack Steffen's 27 years old now and needs to establish himself as a starter within a team somewhere. Now, you and I both know goalkeepers, they have a little more longevity. 27 is probably 25 in terms of a field player. And that age isn't that alarming for 27, but you are nearing that edge where you need to be establishing yourself as a starter. I think the comfortable situation he was in as a backup and getting games that I wouldn't say it's comfortable because I'm sure he doesn't love being a backup, made it an easier decision for him to stick around because they were supporting him and they liked him. Now you bring in another goalkeeper. The writing might be on the wall for you to have to force yourself out of your comfort zone and try something new. Now, the hard part becomes like, is it a transfer? Is it a loan? What's the deal? We've seen City similarly to Chelsea, talking about Jack Harrison, talking about who was it? Eric Palmer Brown going into the City Football Group system and then being loaned out. That could be another case for Zack Steffen. He was doing well when he was at Dusseldorf. He is a good quality goalkeeper, but that time between starting matches consistently could become longer and longer. That I think it's actually a perfect situation should he find the right club to at least head out on another year loan and then figure out from there. What are your thoughts?
That's a good question. Just to give some more context, Stefan Ortega is his name, 29-year-old German, and had a great season despite Bielefeld getting relegated. Did his part. Unfortunately, the rest of his team could not. And I just feel like when I think about it, I don't think Pep Guardiola cares about your feelings. Like, he gives you enough time, and if you're not the guy, he's going to go find another guy that can come in and do the job. So I guess my question to everybody is, if you're Zack Steffen, what would you do? And where would you go? And hit us up on Twitter if you're listening to this later, ISWT Pod. And I apologize for all my coughing. I don't know what the hell is going on here. It's like 85 million degrees because it's like a heat wave where I am right now. But that shouldn't really impact my coughing. Anyway, I feel like General Grievous for all you Star Wars fans out there. So what I want to say is he's got to make a move. This is force his hand. He clearly maybe intimated that he was looking to make a move to go get some minutes, because I don't know why City would potentially activate this spot when they don't really need this spot, when they had it covered. As you said, he got the contract to 25. So I wonder where he's going to go. And if he had an option, where? What he's done the Dusseldorf. He's done, he's played at these teams that aren't great. He just gets shelled the whole time. I just wonder which team is going to take him at this point.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, when you're looking at Steffen coming in, or Stefan Ortega coming in, this is a guy coming off of a season where he was widely regarded as one of the better goalkeepers in the league, and had a few dabbles into the youth German national teams and has been sort of a consistent goalkeeper for that time. Wouldn't you rather have, take the names out of it and the nationalities out of that? Wouldn't you love to bring in your second goalkeeper who's coming off of what I think would be a great season, obviously relegated, so there's always more to the story, but a player that's coming in with a bunch of actual match experience to sit behind your starting goalkeeper and know that the FA Cup or the League Cup, which is important for you, and they've got to be called upon, or upon an injury of your goalkeeper, could step in and be ready and have the experience to tap into. Zack Steffen hasn't ever had that. Like, he does have some experience. I don't want it to seem like he got there when he was 19 and now he's 21 type of thing. He's got professional experience as a starter, but if you're City and you're going to get a player potentially on a cheap transfer. I think that's a pretty solid deal for them. And now Zack Steffen, who wants him, to your question there, I think he's got a lot to offer a club, but I think it's got to be more than a single season loan. Probably it's got to be a move that someone can say, hey, this is going to be our goalkeeper for another couple seasons as we build this roster. A new coach comes in and says, I need to shore up a few positions. I know this guy's got the ability. I've seen him when he's playing regularly, how good he can be. I've just got to get him the run of games, or at least the ability to play himself out of a position. And so I think there's a lot of clubs at the highest level, considering the Bundesliga, again, bottom half of the Premier League table, thinking beyond that into, where else that could be.
I mean, some people saying loan back to MLS, maybe La Liga. He just needs minutes, right? I mean, it didn't hurt Matt Turner to be playing regularly in MLS.
Yeah, he just needs minutes. Now, I think that he could be in a situation where, or he should be in, I think our goalkeeper should be in situations where he should go in as the 1, but somebody challenges you as a 2. I played really at, 2 clubs that actually, both of the clubs that I was at all 3 of the clubs that I was at in Europe, 2 of the 3 I was at in Europe, there were goalkeepers that were challenging for the starting spot all season long. Now you had a starter for long portions of that, but there was always somebody that was showing like, man, they might be ready. They might be ready. If they get their chance, they might not look back. And I fear you don't necessarily have that depth or pressure in Major League Soccer just yet at the goalkeeper position, because the way the budgets are set, you're going to probably spend big on your 1 and have a solid 2, but not have 2 that are like, one's an 8 and the other one's like a 6 closing in on a 7 in terms of their ability. I'm just using arbitrary numbers, but so I think our goalkeepers would be good in those situations where they come in as the 1 and they have to challenge and work hard and fight for that spot by performances week in and week out, like we've seen from some of our other goalkeepers that have been in similar situations in Europe in the past.
Okay, so what I'm going to jump in and say that Zack Steffen only played 9 games in all competitions last season. The one that everybody remembers is the FA Cup semifinal, where he made a few mistakes and they ended up losing to Chelsea. So I see somebody saying, well, he should go to Leeds and join all the other Americans with Jesse Marsh. But would City loan him out to another team in the Premier League? I'm not so sure. I saw somebody say a shout for Burnley. Dude, the Championship is tough. It's rough. I think that could be a decent league for him to prepare himself, especially because there's been some knocks on his game about him coming off his line. And I feel like there's a lot of crossing. There's a lot of physicality to the Championship. And maybe he could benefit from getting those types of valuable minutes, knowing that he's going to play 40, 45 games. Well, of course, leading up to the World Cup, he'll only get, 15 to 20 at that point. But still, that's going to probably sharpen him up more than sitting behind the bench and watching or trying to save free kicks from Bernardo Silva. You know what I mean? Or trying to save practice shots from Erling Haaland, which I think does have its value. Don't get me wrong. But it's something about those in-game decisions. And the player that has that, I think, is the one that's going to start between the sticks for us, Heath.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Tim Howard was fantastic once he settled in at Everton, and Everton wasn't Manchester United, not even close in terms of the level and the quality that Manchester United had. But it was the place that Tim Howard was at his best consistently. And I think Zack Steffen's got to find that place. We saw Brad Guzan when he got into, finally was broken at Villa and found his level of where you might not be Man City. You might not have the glory that goes behind that, but there are other clubs where you can be on the winning side of a season, not necessarily winning trophies, but be getting better, be a consistent starter, be a contributor to the team, well-loved by the fans, but still be at an elite or international level. And I think he's got to be able to find that next thing. And hopefully there's enough options for him coming down the pipeline that he can make that right decision that's not based on, needing to line up with the financials of what City want for either a loan or a move.
Okay, so now let's pivot over to Weston McKennie. And the reason we brought him up is because Paul Pogba has been confirmed. He's going back to Juventus on a free, which is a fantastic business by Juve, by the way, that they sold him to United 6 years ago for $100 million. And now he's coming back for free. That is ridiculous business by the old lady. So shout out to them for that. However, friend of the show, Matteo Bonetti, and obviously a friend of ours, who is a Serie A expert for all things CBS, he says that the midfield he thinks going to see from Juventus moving forward is Pogba, Locatelli, and Zakaria, who came over from the Bundesliga last season, but came over probably still a little bit hurt, never 100%, but you could see his value when he did get to play. And so I tweeted back at him after seeing this that he spelled McKennie wrong, because where does Weston McKennie fit into this? It seemed like he won over Max Allegri after he got healthy and proved that he could be clutch and show up in big moments. The Supercopa goal that Weston scored in the final against Inter is a highlight of that before Alexis Sanchez came in and ruined the party right before penalties. But there's something about Weston McKennie. We've discussed it at the country level, and he's scored some clutch goals, but he also has done it for Juve. And I wonder what happens to Weston McKennie now that Pogba signs, because I feel like they kind of play in not a similar way, but they have some similarities and maybe have the same starting position under Allegri in that midfield. So are you worried for Weston McKennie now that Pogba's back?
Oh, yeah, certainly. But I mean, Weston McKennie was sort of being linked for a while, and whether those are true or not, sometimes that kicks things into motion for you mentally to know that your next move or your next option might be out there. We know that there's been continued strong interest from Spurs, even after Spurs took, what's his name? Kulusevski, and I believe somebody else, Bentancur, yeah. And it seemed like, okay, that option was dead. There was some sort of transaction there. It shouldn't be happening anymore, but that one could kick off again. And then for Weston is a star. He's a big player. He's a quality player, but I still wonder where he fits into a midfield system, right? Is he your attacking midfielder? Is he your two-way midfielder? Mm-hmm. He's got so many different qualities across the board. The consistency of his qualities and what he could bring into a team and where you can play him in the midfielder are so high that he brings you options in a team. But I don't think he contributed in the form of goals and assists that we had hoped. He's got the X factor. He'll always score you the big goal, but can he do it consistently throughout a season? I think that's what Juventus hoped he'd bring a little bit more of, but wasn't. Obviously was injured some last season. And so when I think about him, I think more of that two-way midfielder, the late runner that's maybe doesn't have the same pressures of needing to, late runner in the box, things like that, but needing to be in the box on every attack or needing to be a catalyst for an attack. And with Paul Pogba coming in, you start to have a little bit of those, the duplicative nature of some of their skill sets, except it's Paul Pogba, right? It's no longer competing with Bentancur or Rabiot or Zakaria.
Yeah, there's always somebody, right, in the biggest clubs.
But this is a club legend, so to speak, beloved by fans. And on his day, when Pogba figures it out, when Pogba plays for the national team, when Pogba, he is unbelievable. And so I think that doesn't bode well necessarily for Weston McKennie. But competition, Weston McKennie's always seemed to be in a competitive environment, from being a teenager at Schalke, where he's worked his way into the starting lineup and was a breakout player, to now at Juventus, where people expected that to be like, depth player, and he was a consistent starter. So he seems to do well with competition around him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious because I feel like these two moves with regard to Stefan and McKennie, or the clubs making these other moves, puts the squeeze on them, and they're going to have to sink or swim, right? Or move teams and find a different option or possibility to make sure they're getting valuable minutes. Weston, for me, seems like the type of player that, even if he's not playing a lot, when he puts on the red, white, and blue, he's going to show up and represent. But we still need him to be sharp. And when he's not as sharp, to your point, which is why he wasn't on your top 10 list, if he's not playing a lot of minutes, he's not as sharp, we're not getting the best version of Weston McKennie. Agreed?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Weston McKennie's been through a lot in the last year, and we've seen him come out on top of all of that, only to have injuries set him back on a personal level and on the national team level. But when he's at his best, he's so good. He's so sharp. There's an activity to him, a speed, a pace, a cadence to his game that it's just so fun to watch. And if he's less than that, he can sort of fall into the category of just being one of the 11 players on the field. That even Weston, as one of the 11 on the field on an off day, is still a high quality player. He's still a good player. He's still quality enough to play at Juventus. He's just not the star that we've seen of Weston McKennie, where Weston McKennie is a standout player, where if you're a non-American watching Juventus play, when Weston's having one of his good games, you go, man, that guy can play, as opposed to being like, oh, it's another player in the squad. There's 4 or 5 players in every squad around the world that you look at sometimes and you're like, it's whatever. Even some of the biggest clubs, you don't see them as stars. Weston McKennie has that star potential.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with your thoughts. And then with Ren also, who says this is a good problem for Weston because he still has so much potential, and this will only elevate his game. It's going to have to, otherwise he's going to find a different situation altogether. But I think he'll be up for it. He seemed to have proved every time he's got his back against the wall that he'll figure out a way to make sure that he's starting and win the trust of the coach and the other players. And that's a good pattern to have as a professional athlete.